Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us again for another indie-friendly conversation. And this conversation is very special. We have none other than the former assistant band director at Jackson State University and the current director of bands at Norfolk State University, Professor William Beathea. Say hello to the people, Mr. Beathea.
Man, hello to everybody out there. I love y'all, man. I'm so excited to be here and speak with everybody. Man, this is going to be crazy and bananas to see it. I'm proud of you and what you're doing out there, to keep this tradition alive and for folks to keep in contact with each other through these interviews and Zooms and podcasts and all that you're doing, bro. So I'm just happy to be here. And let me tell you, Jackson State family, right there, baby boy. It'll always be there. Hey. Sometimes series just be coming out of my head, man, out of nowhere, man,
Yes.
Once that gets in you, it don't never leave, you feel me?
It never leaves, it never leaves. And ladies and gentlemen, this professor that I'm speaking with today has a long story of musicianship that we're gonna get into today. He got his start at the HBCU level as far as teaching is concerned, and he's just matriculated his way all the way up to director of band. So there's a lot that we have to discuss. But the reason why I wanted to speak with him is because he has been very influential in Jackson State University's drum section. So of course you all know our nickname is War and Thunder, and there is nobody in the era of the early 90s all the way up to the early 2000s who does not mention Mr. Beathea in such high regard. So I just had to make it my business to speak to him, and he can give you all how he felt, what he did during his time at Jackson State, so you can hear from him. So it's you really a mythical figure, when it comes to, I'm telling you, man.
I appreciate your kind words, Sid, and let me tell you, my experience at Jackson State did prepare me for HBCU band life, and for that I will always be thankful. When you talk about Jackson, you're talking about one of the top 2 programs every year. That's one of the 2 most coveted places to go by all the high school students. When I was at Jackson, man, even years that we didn't really do a lot of recruiting, we were guaranteed 100 freshmen anyway. And for a lot of schools said, you got to go out and hustle for 100 freshmen, and we had the best talent. It was us and Southern, so my experience there was unbelievable. In terms of percussion section, when I got there, bro, I was fresh out of grad school, what happened for me when I graduated grad school, I went to Eastern Illinois and studied with Johnny Lane. He's a product of Southern. So at the time, Johnny Lane had so many connections all over the nation. And I had went there for grad school, and he told me, just go home. Once I graduated, just go home and give me about a few weeks and I'll have a job list for you and you can select where you want to go work. That's how powerful he was. And so when I went there, I went home, celebrated my master's, me and the family proud and all of that. And sure enough, bro, 2 weeks later, he called me on a Saturday and he said, you got something to write with? I said, yeah. And he has 13 jobs lined up for me that I could take interviews. And on the list was Grambling, Texas Southern. And at that time, Paul Adams was considering taking the Texas Southern job. I don't even know if Jackson knew that, but at the time he was considering going there. So we had been talking on the side as well, and it was some other jobs, and then Jackson State was on the list too. And so by the time I looked at it, I said, man, what could give me a really good experience for a first job coming fresh out of college? It was clearly Jackson State. And so that's how I ended up down there. I turned down Texas Southern, I turned down Grambling. Some of the other jobs, there were some percussion jobs in California for school districts and stuff like that. I turned all that down. I'm going to Jackson. And so when I got there, man, the guys in the drumline, bro, they were used to being by themselves, doing things how they want to do them. you know, and when to have somebody over them, they weren't feeling it at all. So, you know, but we struggled, man, for the first couple of weeks. But what happened was I could play. And they always respected those hands. But what happened was Mr. Adams was writing music down there. And he was writing Working Day and Night by Michael Jackson. And he was like, you know, typically, you know, down here, War and Thunder's got a few patterns that they put with every song. But he said, I want something original for this. So he explained to me what he wanted percussive-wise, and I went to work on it. And so when I got done with it, all the sounds that Michael Jackson and stuff had in the song, we incorporated in the drum line. And that was the key. I wanted everything to feel like the music. So when I wrote it, it required that the snare drums play on the bell of the cymbals for a little small part, you know, to mimic those cowbell sounds. Man, when I handed it out, bro, they took the music and they looked at each other. And Mark Gully said, I got a question. I was like, yes, sir. He said, well, we don't really play on the cymbals like that down here. You know what I mean? It was funny, bro. I started cracking up. I said, you know what? I get it, Mark. But what happens is Mr. Adams wanted a different sound to this. So we just gonna try it and see how y'all like it. And bro, once they heard it and it started to fit together with the tenors and the quads and the snares on the cymbals, the snare on snare, cymbal part, once they heard it, it was like, man, this shit kind of tight. you know what I mean? And from then on, they gave me a chance. And so as we started working together and I started working with them, getting their hands up, I started writing more music. It was a combination like this, bro. And that's how it happened. But at first they didn't like me. And I understand that, you know, they've been used to being by themselves, doing the things in their own order. So the first thing I did, bro, was learn the cadences, learn series, learn how stuff goes. Because what happens is students graduate then, but the directors stay. So I couldn't have all the kids graduate and I don't know what the hell is going on. So the first thing I had to do was learn that. And I could play the whole thing on snare. I knew where all the other parts, you know, were supposed to go. I didn't have it perfect because there was so much material, like Stacy, Laws. There was so much cross type. It was so much stuff, man, all the funk trains. But the essence of what was going on, I could play it and I knew it. And I just started to get, you know, more respect because I was giving them respect. And the funk down there was so real, man, Sid. Back in the day, them guys in the 90s that were there with me, man, oh my God. When that joint dropped, boom, it was nothing like it. And I felt it in here. So what happened was, working for Jackson, they kind of brought out the funk in me too. You know what I'm saying to you? Because the music felt a whole different way. And so I think it was a good partnership. I learned a lot at Jackson, learned a lot from War and Thunder. I would hope to think that I taught them a lot as well, because let me tell you something, I had some of the best players I've ever heard, even to this day, in those lines in War and Thunder. And I can name them. Herman to this day, I just saw him in Houston too, by the way, him and Ski at the Battle of the Bands, man. They came to see me, bro. Herman can still play. And he was so fast and clean, you know, I had never heard, and I could really play. I've never heard somebody so powerful and fast and clean as Herman on snare drums that whole time I was there to this day. There was one guy who had chops like that. That was my teacher, Johnny Lane. You know, wow. that I've actually come into contact with. I'm not talking about all this, you know, all this intricate stuff. I'm talking about pure hands with snare drum. Herman. I'll take Herman over everybody, you know, when it comes to just natural chops to play. And so let me tell you a story about that, and then I'll stop and let you intervene here. So the line knew Herman could play. And they also knew that, you know, me being the teacher, I got hands too. And so what happened was I always brought a snare drum in the room whenever I was teaching War and Thunder anything, because I wanted to be able to demonstrate how I wanted it to sound. You know, so one day we came in from practice. You know how there's night practice. We came in, and my drum was still in the room, and I was just tapping on it. And I heard somebody in the corner mimicking everything I played, you know, because the room was full. I was like, I heard somebody else. I heard I heard somebody. I said, oh, this boy's trying to challenge me. So the dudes took the drums off and they wrote on that chalkboard in the room, Mr. Beathea, and they drew a line and they wrote Herman. And me and Herman went at it, bro, right there in front of everybody. One-on-one snare drum battle, teacher, student. And I'm proud to say, man, he outscored me, man, by 5 points. That's how good he was, though. And I was playing sick. I was putting some shit on that boy. And that boy kept coming back. He was so fast and so strong. He had some combinations, man. And the whole entire drum line stayed in that room for about an hour and a half. Something like it was long, bro. We played like 60 things a piece, you know. And yeah, he outscored me by 5 points that night, man. And I was so proud of him for being able to do that, because I've been playing, man. I've been taught by the best, you know what I mean? I've been, you know, educated all the way through master's degree, and he was in undergrad. And that boy had better hands than the teacher, and I loved it. And I told the line, that's my goal. I want all y'all to be able to take me out, because if you can do that, you ready. You ready?
Now, so that's what I love to hear, because you know, some instructors and some professors, they will probably find themselves intimidated in a situation like that. When someone, like you said, who's an undergrad, you know, has one-upped someone who's got a master's, now you teaching. But what I like about you, and I've heard this in another interview that you gave, is not only do you teach, but you empower the students to take leadership and to take a role on as not just being a player on the line, but you encourage them to be better than you, to help to create some cadences and write out some stuff, you know. So talk about that, and talk about that empowerment piece, you know, with your approach to the drummers that you had under your leadership at Jackson State.
Yes, Sid, I think you just said it. I mean, Gumbo, who wrote that new funk train while I was down there, I love, look, my job.
You talking about Funk Train 5? You talking about doom 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 catch?
Yes, that one. My bad. I'm talking about that one. Yes. And so my job as a teacher, man, and an instructor is, and I think you said it eloquently, bro, is to empower the students so that they are able to maintain based on what you showed them themselves, you know. And you can't be intimidated, because I had a couple of students. Herman wasn't the only one. Gregory Stewart on drum set. I used to teach that guy drum set lessons, man, and he was a beast. You know what I mean? Kevin Green on jazz vibe. That's another one of my students. I saw him out in Cali. I mean, what was Cali or Houston? Houston. He came down to Houston to see us as well. But the job is to take the student where he is or she is and raise them levels. Raise them levels until there's no more time to do it anymore. And, you know, I always felt, Sid, that if something were to happen to me and I can't be there, could the students perform? If the answer is no, then you have not done your job as a teacher. You know, I tell my band right now, all the time, if me and Miss Sanders, God forbid, something happens to us, you guys should be able to show up and play that show. You know how to act, you know what to play, you know how to march, you know what to do in the stands. If you're teaching them, then they should be able to get along without you. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of my thing. You know, if the student needs the teacher for everything, can't make any decisions on for themselves. They're not tapping into their own creativity. They're not growing not only as a man and a woman, but as a musician. Then you're failing them as a professor. And that's just the God honest truth. So I covet and yearn for students that have skill where they can show me that they're better or faster or stronger or more endurance or better readers than I am. I love that because that means I'm doing my job, you know, and if the kid, you know, can play with me on any level, then he's going to feel what? Confidence and powerful in himself as well. And sky's the limit for him. And so I got students out there doing great things, man. I remember I had a snare drummer named Wes. We used to call him Little Man, the light-skinned cat man on snare drum. I came through that music building one night at about 1 or 2 o'clock. And I heard somebody in the drum room playing what I thought did was a double stroke roll. All I heard was, and it was really, really fast. When I opened that door, Wes was playing that 4 strokes at a time. And it was so clean and so fast. I could not play that exercise as fast as him. I couldn't believe my ears, man. He was going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And he had it, controlled it, where it could sound just like a double stroke roll, man, going, and he was doing like this. And I closed that door and I said to myself, now that's what I'm talking about. That people weren't playing that kind of stuff before I got there. You know what I mean? Contemporary rudiments, hybrid rudiments, we was playing cheeses, playing fives, all that way back then.
Yeah.
You know, way back then. So I would like to think, you know, I developed Warren Thunder's musicianship in terms of drumming, and I enhanced the musicianship in terms of arrangements played to songs. Because when I got there, you know, there was like 4 or 5 patterns that they knew very well, that whatever song came out, they would just put, you know, one of their patterns to the song. The problem with that is every song has a melodic content, a harmonic content, and a rhythmic content. So while your pattern may fit, you have not captured the essence of the rhythmic content of the song. And that changes it. So what I tried to do is every time Mr. Adams wrote something or arrangement came out, I was writing. So that when Warren Thunder hooked up, it's gonna feel and sound like the real song because we captured the rhythmic content to it. You know what I mean? I remember we wrote, I think it's Prince or Morris Day and the Time, 777-9311. Woo! 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 I don't know if that's on YouTube anywhere, but that is one of the coldest drum parts I ever wrote for any school. Oh my God. And you know, Warren Thunder was in that. Them plumes was rocking. Let me tell you something. Me and Cliff talked about that the other day. Cliff Murray, Oha. We talked about that the other day. 777-9311. I don't know if it's out there anywhere, but that was one of the coldest drum parts I wrote, bro. And I wrote a lot of things in my 8-9 years at Jackson State, but that one was cold. And it just sounds just like the set player. And good rhythm fuels the band to play. You know what I mean? It fuels the band to play, man. So that's kind of what my philosophy was. And I wasn't going to go down there and just say I'm the percussion instructor at Jackson State. I wanted to make an impact some kind of way, you know. And so
you come from a core background, right?
Yeah.
So how was that transition? Of course, in the core, you're not playing on Power Stroke 77s. You know, you on them Kevlar heads tuned all the way up. So how was that transition from core style to now you at an HBCU and you have to adapt to what we doing at Jackson State?
That's a great question. And let me first say this, good drumming is good drumming. All right, clean is clean, right? Funk is funk. Feel good is feel good. Don't matter what kind of head you're playing on, what your style is. You know, everybody still's got to be together, right? Everybody still has to be balanced. You got to know where the main part is or where the backup parts are. Them snare line got to be clean, you know. So it's all the same. So all I needed to do, and I want to pat myself on the back for this, Sid, I didn't come in there trying to change everything. I didn't come in there with all this philosophy on what Jackson State, Warren Thunder should be doing. I sat back and I listened. And once I understood what their style was, then all I got to do is what? Make sure the hands are right. make sure it's clean, make sure we're balanced. All of those musical principles that, work for whatever you're doing. That was my job, to make sure that those guys were improving rudimentally. That while we may not play a bunch of hybrid rudiments in our music and in our cadences, but that they knew them, right? Because we were so popular, Sid. I didn't want one of my guys to be in Yazoo City somewhere, and everybody know he on the stair line, or even he might be the stair captain. I didn't want him to be there and kids are playing slam fives or cheeses and stuff, and he didn't know what it was. Right. You see what I'm getting at? So yeah. I was into that education piece, man, to make sure they just knew what it was. And I left before I think we could have turned the corner. I haven't heard the line in a long time, so I don't know what they're doing now. I watch videos sometime of the entire band, but I haven't heard just the line in a long time. I'm not sure what they're doing now, but I left right before. If I had stayed, bro, we would have turned that corner and sort of implementing some of that stuff to the funk. And then we would have been just ridiculous. We were on our way there.
I believe you. I believe you 1,000% when you say that, because you left in, was it 99 or 2000?
Yep, 2000.
Okay, so I came in the section in 2004. So when I got there, we were doing pretty much the same things. We had the same repertoire as we had in the 90s. But you could tell that it had been carefully curated over the years and maintained. But when I got there in 04, that's when we started to turn it around and kind of make the stuff more complex and syncopated rhythms, But I tell you what, the foundation that was laid in the 90s, was such a solid foundation to stand on. And I know one of the things that you did was you improved the equipment that Jackson State had. So talk about, how did you find out about the company Stingray, and why did you choose to go with that company to have them outfit the section with drums?
That's a great question. What happened was, by me studying with Johnny Lane, I was his guy. He's a very, 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 very popular international percussion instructor. He knew all the companies, all the executives. He doesn't miss a year at the Percussion Art Society convention. Prof knows everybody. So what happened was, there were some guys that left a reputable company. I can't remember which one, so I'm not going to say. And they went to start their own company called Stingray. And they were looking for new schools and new artists to kind of help them promote, their new equipment. And so I got wind of that, and I told them to send me a drum. I showed them to the guys. They took the time to make those custom tenors for us. Them 16s, they made them for us. They made the brace that rest on your lower chest and stomach area. They made all that for us. And they wanted us to play with their equipment, man, to get out there and, really help launch their company. And they wanted to have War and Thunder and Jackson State Bandstand behind that. And so I thought about it. And I said, this is a brand new thing. If this goes well, it's going to go really well. It's kind of like an investment that's going to hit, but you were one of the first to get your money in there. You know what I mean? This could go really, really, really well. And so I talked to Louis Liddell, that was the band director at the time. And let me shout out the band directors too, man. Dr. Liddell, Michael Magruder, who was oh my God. I spent a lot of time over at Dr. Magruder's house. Then it was just Mr. Michael Magruder. He got his doctorate later on at Jackson, but and his wife, lovely wife and daughters, those were like my little nieces, man. And Magruder's done well for himself. And Pop Duplessis, rest his soul, that was my guy. Of course, Paul Adams, we came up to Norfolk together. So those guys had a real impact on me, man, because I was only, and my kids, I'd be messing them up when I say this, but it's true. I was 23. I think I just turned 24. when I got that job as assistant band director at Jackson State. I was a
Wow.
young dude. Bro, I've been in this game a
Wow.
long time, Sid. I was 24 years old,
Wow.
you know, and I
Wow.
got hired at Jackson. So I was really, really young, and they knew that. And so they were good at protecting me from myself. You know, those long talks in Pop's office, you know, Magruder, you know, they were really, really helpful. Paul Adams was really instrumental in helping me grow, man. And so they were real supportive. You know, so when the Stingray thing came along, it wasn't a reputable company. But I told them I want to give it a shot because we'll have our own thing going. You know, when we hit, you know, series and all that stuff, I want folks to say, man, what kind of drums they using? You know, and so what they did is they made the drums and they sent us some so that we can try them out. And the students loved them. At first, they didn't like the tenors because the tenors had like a thinner sound. It wasn't as warm as they were used to, you know, like blue goom. It was thinner, like blue goom. It was piercing. And so we did some muffling and some different heads and stuff to try to get the tenor to sound like they wanted to. And Ali Boyd figured it out, you know, with the amount of muffle that he wanted to put on the drums, and he got them boys to sing, and we were all good from there. But that's how that happened, man. They gave us a serious. I don't remember how much we paid, but it was pennies to try this new drum company and represent it. And once we figured out how to tune them, got those fiber skin 3s and 2s on there, you know, with that patch, that muffling system we had back in the day to make it sound perfect. And let me tell you, they did too. We used to get in those games, Sid, and the first thing that Big BDs did was go boom. And you can hear that reverb going all through the stadium, you know. And it used to intimidate those other lines for us. That's the first thing we did. We get in there. I remember one time I was talking to Magruder. We was at Alabama State. I was like, yeah, bro. We was talking. After we heard boom, we both jumped. Boy, one Sunday hit them bass drums, boy, it was like, and it was like, you could hear this reverb, man, throughout the entire stadium. Like, they had them tuned perfectly. And then here come Ali, and that drum ringing through the whole stadium, you know what I mean? So the boys figured out how to tune them, you know, and they were glad to have some new equipment. And they got in there and figured out how to tune them to put just the right amount of muffling on them, and they had them singing for us. So that's the story behind that, man. I was going all in to be different, to do something different. And that's kind of what we were all about. Those shells were, the serves were made of fiberglass too. They had those fiberglass shells, man, that helped stuff ring out good too. So, yeah, bro, that was it. That's what happened.
That decision you made to go with Stingray, I don't know if you realize it or not, but that's probably one of the most monumental decisions ever made in the history of War and Thunder. I'm talking about those Stingrays have now become something. Well, they discontinued Stingray now.
Yeah.
But we were the last line to have them. I don't even really know of any other line outside of like high schools that had them, but we still had them when I was there. And even though they was breaking down, we used to have to repair them. We would have to order lugs for them. Sometime they would, you know, give out on us. We did not want to let them go. We did not want to let them go. And it wasn't until we finally got the dynasties. But it wasn't the same, like you said, that fiberglass shell is something about that where you get that good reverb and that projection to where it sounds like no other drum line. And I mean, that decision you made to go with Stingray, that added to the legendary status of War and Thunder, because of course, everything we play with, the high schoolers want to play with. And not just in Jackson, you know, the reach that we have in Memphis, especially. I mean, man.
And see what happened with them, Sid, I don't think they could ever really breach the Drum Corps Society, you know, and I think because of that, it was hard for them to stay afloat years and years later, because I was selling lines for them. And I was selling lines for them, bro. When just like what you're talking now, when high school band directors or high school percussion teachers or, you know, whoever would ask me about the drums, I sure would. I would hook them up with Stingray, set up a package, and they took care of me like that, you know, in order to be able to help sell their products. So they sold a lot of lines by me, but I think they couldn't quite breach the DCI world. And that's probably what caused them to, you know, have to fold years later. But yeah, man, I like to be different, Sid. And to me, Jackson State was different. Why are we playing on Yamaha and Pearls where everybody got that when your sound is unique, your funk is unique, your look is unique? You know, why are we playing on the same drums? You know, the drums got to fit your personality. So we needed something different. We needed to hit different. And so that's why I went with Stingray. Nobody had them, you know, nobody had them. So we kind of made them our own thing. And like I said, once the students got in there tuning and messing with them to get the sound that they wanted, we were all good.
Yeah, yeah. Great. So I just want to thank you for choosing that company, because if you look at the section from the 90s on up until like the mid 2000s, that sound we had is unmatched to this day. Unmatched.
Yeah. Hey, Sid, I got something for you, man. The drums that Stingray gave me, I still have it.
Wow.
I still have it. That white one that you can ask Herman, you can ask Wes, Rod, all of them. Snap. That drum I used to bring in the drum room that I used to teach them on, I still got it, and it's in mint condition.
Wow, you got it right now, right now?
Man, it's in my office, bro. I'm at home now, but let me tell you something. We can come back to this. I can hit that thing for you. Pop, 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 pop. I still got it. Yeah, it's at my office, bro. I still have that drum.
Wow.
I can't get rid of that, man. That's a classic, bro. Hey, I might have to give it to Jackson to put in a frame or in somewhere Hall of Fame room or something.
Oh man, that is a collector's item.
But I've been through some drum companies. Like once I left Stingray and I got to Norfolk, I signed with Dynasty. They gave me a drum too, you know. I thought System Blue was going to be the next thing. We were going that way, but COVID shut them down. They gave me a drum too. So I got snare drum for days, bro.
Yeah. Well, who are some of the all-stars? You were there from 1993, right?
Yeah.
To 99. So who are some of the WT all-stars? You mentioned Herman, you mentioned Wes. Who are some of the all-stars that really kept that thing going and really helped make your job worth going to every day?
Yeah, I had one line that was just magical, you know, and I can't remember what year, but this line was, they all looked good. They all were clean cut. They all had the funk, and all of the guys I'm mentioning were in that line. And I used to take them on tour, you know, just drums. Yazoo City, Memphis. We used to go up to Memphis and play gigs all the time. And when they heard One Thunder was coming, wherever we was going, sold out. We did one performance at the Coliseum downtown, man. We had that stage, and them boys came out there, man, and hit Laws and Stacy. That whole place, thousands and thousands of people went bananas, asking for autographs. What hotel y'all staying? Hotel, we going home. It was bananas. But in that line, we had James Weary was in there. We had Snap, Rod, Herman, Wes was in there. Toby was in there. We had Gumbo, Ali Boyd on tenor. That cymbal line, we had our boys from New Orleans, Essays is what we used to call them. They was in there. Vintez was in there. And on that bass drum line, that's Ski, 1212, Oha, Cliff, all them boys on that line, and they were just sharp, bro. They were just sharp. They had it, you know. And not only did they have the funk in terms of sound, their look. You know, when that stick go right there, boom, it was right there and it was sexy. You feel me? They were sexy with it. And so that probably was my best line all the years that I was there. They had everything down, man, you know. And when they hit that, they look so sweet with the marching and the plumes and the legs were just the same. This was just the same. They put a little twirl in it. Oh, they was nasty. They were nasty. So that would be my line that, you know, if I had to take anywhere in any drum competition, they would be tough to deal with because of how funky they were and how good they looked. And they all were good looking dudes too, on top of that, you know. So they just had it all, man. That the French call it that je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had it, bro. And so, but you know, in Jackson, man, you gotta have all of that for it to work right. You know, if you don't look good while you're playing and you're not getting those crescendos on that drum and the power's not there, and it's not clean, none of it works. All of that has to fit together. So I haven't saw the recent lines too much. I've been really busy with what I'm doing now, but I'm hoping that they are carrying on that tradition, you know, and I'm hoping that they haven't lost while they are putting new cadences in the library. I'm hoping that they have not lost, you know, the essence of what War and Thunder was about. And that's, you can't even get that if you're not playing the cadences from the past. You know, a wise man taught me, learn your history before you start moving forward, you know. So I hope those guys aren't coming in now just writing all this new stuff and haven't learned the history. Because if they do, they're going to lose the essence of what War and Thunder is about. And that would make me very angry. Because when I hear Jackson, I want to hear War and Thunder like I left it. You know, I want to hear the funk like I left it. If they're doing something else that's not characteristic of them, then that doesn't make sense. Just like I'm up here at Norfolk State, that's a more technical line right there, you know. And I've been bringing, when I came up here, my goal was to combine, you know, that rudimental funk, get some funk with it, what you're doing, and combine that whole thing. And they were already doing it. So we got our style here. So we, you know, doing what Jackson or Southern does wouldn't work up here. It's a different style of drumming. So, you know, when people go down and listen to Jackson, they want to hear Jackson. You know, my percussion instructor that teaches up here now, he loves Jackson State.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And so I think that Jackson should be proud of that. The boys at the U, their style, they should be proud of it. Bethune-Cookman should be proud. Norfolk, Prairie View, because everybody got their own thing and you got to do your thing. So, you know,
I'm glad you said that. So
yeah.
where do you, okay, how do you balance keeping the tradition, but not being stuck in the past to where now you're not advancing and moving forward and modernizing the line? Like, how do you balance that? Because of course we want to keep the tradition, but how do you find out that middle area where you say, okay, well, we're gonna keep all of the old stuff, but we're gonna bring so much new stuff in every year or every other year or something like that? How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's called creativity. But in order to be creative in where you want to move forward, which is what, advancing your drum line, but not losing the essence of what it is, you have to understand the history. You know, you have got to understand the history and what it is you're trying to achieve first. And once you understand that, then you can be creative and create anything. You know, somebody might say, man, we got this cadence and series called Clyde. I'm gonna make a Clyde too, you know, right? So you gotta really listen to Clyde and see what kind of creative juices that gives you, and then move on with Clyde 2. And in Clyde 2, you can put some stuff in there that Jackson ain't played before. That's good. But it's still gonna fit the aura and the style of what you've had because you've studied your history. And that's how I approach it. No line I went to had I ever changed their style. I studied them, see what they was about, and then started writing from there. That's how I did it. And it's kind of like, man, I was listening to Michael Jackson before he passed away. He was doing an interview and dudes asked him, how did you ever come up with Billie Jean? Michael was like, well, I knew I wanted something with a happening bass line. And he said, I kept singing them to me. And he said, one day I was in the bed and it came to me. He said, I got up, went to the piano and figured that out, and the rest is history. That's how drumming works too. You know, all I got to say to myself is, man, I want something funky like Jackson State. and it's gonna come to me. Just the natural creativity. You know what I mean? It's gonna come to you. But you gotta put your mind in the frame of what that style is, and then just be creative, and it comes out. And sometimes you sleep, sometimes you on a date. I be having stuff hit me, bro. I be like, oh, hold on, baby, give me a second. You know, and I have to go right down and get on my phone and write what just came to my head. So when I'm ready to put it down on paper, it's gonna be there. That's how music works. It's a beautiful thing. What happens, Sid, is you're creative. When you create and you think of ideas, and those two things meet, you have a wonderful masterpiece.
Yeah. That's beautifully stated. And I've never heard it put that way. And sometimes, see, me being a newer generation, even though 2004 was a while ago, it's still kind of a new generation. And you know, sometimes, as forward thinking as I would be during my time at Warren Thunder, it wasn't until I left and graduated where I started to really appreciate the old stuff that was there when I got there. And it's like the old stuff was perfectly placed. And I mean, nothing was clashing. Nothing was, you know, music is a conversation. Nobody was over talking another drum.
And Sid, it felt so good in your soul. You know, when you get rookies, well, we call them rookies up here, y'all get crabs, you know, in the line, bro, and they don't quite got it. And then it's that day. There's that day during the semester, bro, when they hook up and you call Laws or you call Stacy if they've gotten that far, you call cross type, you call series, and everything locking. Man, that happened to us in that room, bro. And when they put those drums down, everybody was just like, oh, you know, like, the feeling when everything locks and everything looks and feels good, that happened to us a lot in that drum room. And if you are blessed enough to ever feel that, where the snares, the cymbals, the tenors, the quints, and the BDs all lock in, and each section is clean, and everything has the right touch, the right crescendo, the right accent, the right power, and everybody looks the same. And everybody got that look on their face, that funk look on their face. It's magical, bro. And whenever that happened in the drum room, we just set them off and just basked in the moment. You know, I remember Gregory Stewart on Quince, man. He was just like, oh, we got done playing something. And it was so funky from the beginning to end. And that's what music is about. And that's what real artists are able to achieve in their music. And, you know, I'm so honored to be here talking to you today, man, because Jackson State gave me my start, bro. I would have never been here. But when I left, I was so confident, you know, from all the experience I had, you know, playing Southern, you know, going to get Tennessee State and Memphis, you know, the time we went down to FAMU, you know, the times Howard came, you know, it was so intense week after week down there in the SWAC that I felt like I could go anywhere and be successful. And the students taught me just as much as I taught them, bro. I'm telling you, you know, I haven't been the same. The pre-Beathea going to Jackson and the post-Beathea, two different dudes, man. And I can thank Jackson for that, for real, for real.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful, man. And I know they didn't just let you walk in there. I know you had to earn it. I had to earn it, bro. Let me tell you something. Hey, I almost got a pipe bomb in the rental car, bro. What did it? Hey, bro, I almost got a pipe bomb in the rental car, bro. That's okay, bro. You know, it all worked out. Yeah. They told me that story, man, months later. They said, man, we didn't like you at first, man. We was gonna put a pipe bomb in your rental car. I said, what? You was gonna do what? Yeah, bro. Hey, them old school dudes was crazy, man. Man, they was crazy, bro. You know, you had to be about it to be in that drum room for real.
You had to know what you was doing, and you had to have a presence about yourself, or they'll run you out of there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So
because just what you said, they will run you out of there, and not because they want to be malicious in any way. It's just because the students at Jackson State, they are the protectors of the legacy. They are the protectors of the cadence. At One Thunder, these cadences are largely written by the students. So this is a student-led group. So nobody can just come in and, like you say, try to change stuff. And kudos to you for learning the style before implementing what you had to bring, because that's very important. It didn't always go that way after you left, being honest. And that caused a lot of turmoil and friction because, we felt like, okay, well, man, you haven't even taken the time out to learn the language. Now you want to inject new words into our language that you don't even know yet, So, but that's, it's just things, but you seem to be much wiser in that regard.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to throw in. I was a young man, Like, that's why I wanted to throw in the effect that Dr. Liddell, Paul Adams, Michael Magruder, who was about 10 years older than me at the time, so he wasn't that much older. Pop Duplessis, those guys, man, really. And I think my wisdom comes from learning how to shut up and listen to those guys that have been there and done that. Now, whether I agree with it or not, or I'm going to use it or not, that's another story. But just listen, because I tell my students all the time, Sid, and this is real talk, the only difference between me and them is I've been 18 before. I've been 19 before. I've been 20 before. I've been 21. I've been 22 before. But you haven't been 50. That's it. It's not that I'm smarter than you, because I've got some students that are brilliant. It's not that I'm smarter than you, but I've been your age before. You haven't been mine. So it would be intelligent of you just to listen to what I'm trying to tell you. Whether you accept it or not, it's on you. But here's the message. And those that can do that, nothing but success ahead of them. Because the people don't change, Sid. That's why God knows us so well. We acting just like those folks did when Jesus walked the earth. We have different things now, right? We have technology now, we have cars now, we have different things, but the nature of a human being stays the same. So why would you not learn from some people that have been there and done that? And that's what I was smart at. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have been able to make it. Because when you're 24, you think like you're 24.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, man, but it was great down there, bro. Woo-wee.
Yeah. So you say Jackson prepared you for your next opportunity, but of course, you could have went anywhere and have been prepared coming from Jackson State.
Yeah. Yeah.
You landed at Norfolk State University, and I have to tell you, Mr. Beathea, outside of One Thunder, that's my favorite drumline of all time. I mean,
you,
man.
Thank you.
And it's almost like we related in some kind of way when you talk about the funk. And I don't think a lot of people understand that, because when I listen to Norfolk, like, what's the cadence that they play, like when the drum majors are coming through the tunnel and and it's just for them?
Up here, that's called Star Wars. That pop, 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 pop. Down there, it's called Bear.
Right.
You know what that is? That's a whole nother interview. That's that old school Johnny Lane and the people that were down with him. They wrote all these cadences that went from school to school to school. When Johnny Lane listens to Bear, up here it's called Star Wars, he always says, that's my cadence I wrote. And a lot of HBCUs have that cadence because that was one of those popular beats that went from school to school back in the 50s, 60s. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's called Star Wars, man, and it sounds just like Bear. When I got up here, bro, and they first played it, I said, "Stop, that's Bear. Where y'all get that?" You know, I was in my feelings, bro. Like, where y'all get that? You know, that's like, oh man, we've been playing it for years. It's called Star Wars up here. I said, Star Wars, and you know, when they played it, they do some different stuff too. I said, okay. But that sounded like Bear, you know, and I know that Southern, Jackson, a couple of more older HBCU band programs had that cadence way back 50s, 60s, because that was Johnny Lane, bro, and his stuff spread like wildfire.
Right. But I see so many parallels with the funk, man. Whenever I hear Norfolk, and I've consumed so much Norfolk material over the years, I've always admired their style, and there's no clashing going on, and the tempo is locked in. And to be honest, I wasn't always a fan of the core style drumming,
right.
but $1 Million Funk Squad marries the two together in such a perfect way to where it's not really core, because it got so much funk in it, but it's still technical enough to where, man, they can mop the flow, you know, with I mean, really mop the flow with one of these core bands. So what was it like? Okay, you left Jackson State, so now the instrumentation is slightly different. What was that like now, adjusting your approach? Now you got the tonal basses, you know, the snares are pitched higher, but like you say, good music is good music. But now the instrumentation is different, the drums are different. Talk about that a little bit.
That's a good question. And it's important for folks to understand out there that there's no right or wrong answer to this. All right. It's about what you want to hear. If you like 2-ply clear head and that type of snare sound, go for it. That's not wrong. You know, if you like the Kevlar head, tighter, that's not wrong. It's what you like. So up here, they like the tonal bass drum sound. There's no tenor, you know, in there. You have sextuplets or quints that we had snare and bass and cymbals. So you got 4 degrees there. And so I was familiar with that because remember, I marched chorus style high school, right? I went to chorus style colleges, you know, so that wasn't anything new for me. But what happened at Norfolk State, we had a revelation too. I had been here maybe 3 years. That was about 2003 or so. And we battled Morris Brown. And Morris Brown was coming off of just making drumline, you know. And traditionally up here, you know, when you catch us in a block situation, we're going to be very impressive playing. But there wasn't a lot of movement, wasn't a lot of dancing, some, but not much. Morris Brown came up here and was all over the gym, coming off of that drumline stuff. They almost did that whole routine up here. And we basically stand and played, which up until then worked. So the Funk Squad was so used just to playing everybody under the rug. All this dancing and flipping, none of that mattered up here until Morris Brown came, because they gave you a little bit of both. You know what I mean? And so that was the first time I had been here for 3 years that the conversation up here was like, man, Morris Brown got us. Morris Brown got us. And I listened, I said, man, they weren't as technically proficient as we played better. Yeah, man, but they was, you know, that conversation was going on. So I told the drumline that day, it was 2003. From now on, I'm going to start really, really writing stuff for y'all so that we can implement both styles, and we're going to show people what we're doing, you know, because sometimes people can't see it, Sid, when you just stand there and play, right? So we're going to visually and through audio show folks what we doing. And that's when I started writing. I was in that motherfucking shed with my office door closed, 3 or 4 in the morning. And what we would do from that point on is take some of the Funk Squad's traditional cases, and I typically would write something in the beginning, something in the middle, and something on the end. And we started taking the drums off, bro. We started weaving. We started doing all kind of stuff. And drum sets out there. We just went bananas with it. And that had a huge effect on the style that you see up here now. And again, my experience in Jackson really helped that because we were so good, pretty to look at, so fun to look at. I had to somehow get that mixed in with the playing ability of these guys up here, and then we'd have something magical, and that's just what happened. But it changed when Morris Brown came up here, bro. They were all over the gym, cymbal players sitting on each other's shoulders, twirling, sticks everywhere, flipping, and it was so much going on that it made us look like we weren't doing anything, even though we actually played better that day. You know what I mean? So that was the birth of it, bro. And I started writing, and same thing we talked about earlier. I was on my students about being creative. I need y'all to help with this. What do y'all come up with? Because y'all in it. Y'all know what people want to hear. And the students started writing stuff, and I would help them get what their ideas were out on the drums so that it would work. And all that stuff working together, boy, you got all them minds working, you can't fail. And that's what happened with us, bro. And so, yeah, it's been real ever since.
Yeah, I was looking at the 2019, I believe, floor show that y'all did at, is it Highland Springs or?
Yeah.
I think
You
that's
didn't see the one versus A&T though?
I probably, what year?
Yeah. I think it was 2019, that same year talking about. We had just got the System Blues. They all black drums. The drum feature ended with the tenor solo. And they were so fast and so clean. The crowd went bananas.
I saw that.
And he had on all gold windsuit.
I saw that. But what's the show where they started with the bass drums on the floor?
Mm.
And it's like, I don't know if it was the snare drummers came up first and played on the basses, then the real bass drum players came up.
Yeah, that was actually at A&T, and that's the idea I had. One thing I do when you come and audition for me, I want to know what you can do percussively other than the instrument you want to play. So that was a year where I had a line that was good enough where anybody could have played snare. So I said, we're going to fool people. I set the snares up, and the cymbals came out first, and they played the snare solo with some back sticking and stuff, and, it was sweet but simple, Pop, they put the drum down, and I could tell while they were playing. I could hear the audience go, man, these snares not as good as they used to be.
Yeah.
Little did they know, Sid. And then they put the snares down, they went to cymbals and picked them up and started shaking. Then the next group came out, and all the groups came out on snare before the real snare players came out. And as groups stopped playing snare, they went to their instrument and started to build on a rhythm that was developing. Yeah. That was at A&T, bro. That was something I wrote. It was one of the things I wrote.
Oh man, that's off the chain, man. That's off the chain. I'm talking about when I watched that, I'm just like, man, sonically, first of all, if I was to close my eyes and listen to it, it would still be a masterpiece. But when you see all of the visuals that's going on, and they got that funk, and it's uniform, just like Jackson State, and that's why I said we gotta be cousins or something, man. Because
hey, man. Yes, sir. We definitely cousins, man. And that's why I want to keep saying this, man. Real music is real music. It's gotta feel good. And credit to Jackson State, because I think that out of everybody I've heard, I done heard them all. When it comes to feel, the music gotta feel good in your soul. Jackson State leads the way in that, and I did, man. I learned that there, and when, everything I do, from that point on that I left, I'm saying to myself, it's gotta feel good. That's what Prince said when he was out there, God rest his soul. That's what Bruno Mars is saying in his rehearsal. You can be all technical if you want to, but if that don't feel good, when you playing with Bruno, you gotta go. You can't be on Chris Brown's set and your bass playing don't feel good. You gotta go. You know what I mean? So, and I want to credit Jackson for that, man, because that was you know, that was embedded in my soul, man, about how the music's gotta feel. You know, think I've been gone so long, man. I was there the year the show came out. When that cat wrote the show, man, I was in the band room when we was putting that together. And I walked in, because I don't know where I was coming from, but they was already in there. Sean Darby was section leader at that time. Sean Darby, that's my guy, you know. I walked in and they was playing the show. And I was like, Sean, y'all need some help with this? He said, Mr. Say, we got it. Because by that time I had been writing, and you know, our style was it's got to sound like the record. And by the time I got in that band room, them boys had it. They had it. And you know, I think I might have made a couple small, real super small things. But they had laid it down. And that's when I know, I said, they understand what their role is. You know, patterns, we threw them patterns away. And everything now is, it's got to sound like a record. It's got to feel good, you know, so.
Yeah. So speak a little bit about the importance of musicianship, because of course you were over the drum line, but you were also assistant band director. You weren't just a drum guy. You know, you have to have a musical outlook as far as looking at it as an ensemble and not just as a section. So speak a little bit about drummers being musicians. Some drummers I've noticed, you know, the more chopping things get, you know, people have just been like kind of focused on just becoming a good drummer, or especially a good snare drummer, but they don't have that inclination to think like with an ensemble mindset. It's not just a drummers, you know.
Yeah, you bring up great points. And what really helped my musicianship was working with Paul Adams, you know, because I was his guy. Whenever he wrote a new arrangement from 93 on to this day, I was his guy writing the percussion score. So when you spend hours with a genius like that, you learn how it all fits together. But it's true out there. Look, y'all that are listening, that are percussionists, you have got to understand what's going on around you. You got to hear harmonies, you got to hear melodies that all impact on what you should be playing and how you should be performing as a percussionist. It all fits together. You are so right about that. And what my ears started developing, you know, it became clear when I should not have drums playing right now because these beautiful harmonies need to sing out. It became clear where, well, he's just holding a 5-chord here. There's nothing really happening. I need to drum this up, you know, where we really need to be active. You know, it became clear that we don't want to have balance. We don't want to have too much heavy drumming here when the trumpets are the only one that have the melody. And we don't want to be beating over the entire band so you can barely hear the melody. You know, things like that. It became obvious that you better be careful how the tuba and the bass drum fit, right? Because there's ways to tune a bass drum that it'll kill your tuba sonority. Sure will, you know. And so if you want to be good at what you do, you just can't influx your little thing. You got to understand what's going on around it. Like, let's say this was sports, right? And I'm the defensive coordinator. If I don't understand what our offense is trying to do, then how can I plan a good defense? You know, do we have a ball control offense? Or do we have a high flying offense that's going to get ahead of people so I can blitz a lot because they're trying to catch up? You know, you have to know. And the same thing, the same thing goes with music, bro. Same thing. And from my first days in Jackson to where I am now, I'm not even the same musician. I've learned so much, you know, from the guys down there, up here, O'Neill Stanford, Paul Adams still, Stephanie Sanders, who's a brilliant musician, my associate director of band, a brilliant musician. And so, you know, sometimes just the change of a chord can impact what you're supposed to play on drums. You can't just beat through everything, you know? If you don't know that, you're just gonna have patterns and you're gonna beat through everything and you're gonna run into music where that doesn't fit. You think it's good, but people that really know music are sitting in the audience going, what in the world are they doing? And I hear it all the time. Too much drums here, not enough drums here. Well, why didn't it fill that space then? You know, you got to know what's going on around you and how your thing fits in there, you know. So that's a great question, bro. Let me ask you, Sid, you asked us some questions. Are you still doing music?
Well, I've done some original music over the years.
Okay.
I'm a vocalist, producer, writer.
Okay.
I've released 2 projects in the past. I have to send you some stuff. I got some stuff on YouTube as well. So, but being involved in music and in other ensembles outside of marching band helped me to better understand what's going on in marching band. Because if you've never been involved in another ensemble, it could even be concert band or symphonic band or something like that. If you've never been a part, or even the choir, if you've never been a part of another ensemble, then you won't get that relational education. Like, okay, well, this voice relates to my voice in this way, okay? Or at this point of the song, I need to do this, or I do not need to do that, you know, but that comes from just being involved in music as a whole and not just in our small niche world of marching band, you know, because music is a whole universe. And if you only get that small piece of it, then, you know, you're really missing out on a lot. And, but I know you guys have other ensembles as well at Norfolk. So speak about some of the other ensembles, because you're the director of bands. So that's just not the Spartan Legion. That's everything, right?
Yeah, we got 2 jazz bands and a plethora of jazz combos. Miss Sanders is over all that stuff. We got symphonic band here. We got percussion ensemble. Some years, depending on numbers, we have brass ensemble, woodwind, clarinet ensemble. We've had it all. One thing we don't have is an orchestra, and I really wish we can get an orchestral program going. But, you know, we have those chamber groups, man, and our big ensembles are the 2 jazz bands, marching band, and symphonic. And we're in symphonic now, man, and having some good sessions with those kids. To me, your marching band, you know, unless you're a big school like Texas or, you know, Florida, where you can have an athletic program, a marching band program that's just involved with athletics, you know what I mean? And you got all these monster musicians to select from, you know, you can't have a good marching band that way. But if your marching band is in the music department, that's different. And that means the focus of it, how well the marching band is going to play, is going to depend on how good your symphonic band and concert band is. That's where we're teaching them, you know, and we're talking about phrasing, balance, tone quality, lip slurs, articulations, you know, one guy can't be playing and another one going another one going that kills what? Your volume, your cleanliness, all of that. All the things you're trying to achieve is you're killing yourself because you're not even articulating the music the same. So we teach the kids in there, and we always bring back next year in marching band, you know, because in my program, 70% of the kids major in other things. I only have like 30-35% music majors, right? So they're in symphonic band, you know, satisfying their scholarship requirement. They want to learn more about music, and they're preparing for next year. So we are teaching them all of these things so that when you get in your sectionals or you get around somebody that's struggling in your section, you know how to clean yourself up and fix it up, you know. So it is crucial to have those other. I got kids that are in the choir too. You just said it. You know, I've got kids that perform jazz all over the place. And all these kids are bringing these experiences back, and it helps your overall system. You want to have something, Sid, where a kid comes to your program and just kind of flourishes because of the way the system is set up. You know, I want the kids to learn out of the 100% of everything they've learned. I only want maybe 30 or 40% coming from the band director.
Right.
Then you got something. Yep. Then you got something.
Right.
So you're speaking.
Right.
I need to join your church this Sunday. You speaking the gospel, sis.
Oh man, well, you more than welcome. Hey, come on down to
Yeah.
Houston. We could let you join for sure.
My man.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
When
so
I'm in
what?
Jackson one time, I have to hit you up.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Anytime you in Houston, hit me up. Anytime. I'll
Oh,
show
you in
you.
Houston now?
I'm in Houston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but see, I was born and raised in Houston. I got a scholarship to go to Jackson.
Got you.
And I tell you what, and I've never told my story of how I got there, but it was not because of the drummers. It was not. I heard Jackson State. I went to the Jackson State and Texas Southern game in 2003, and it was at the Astrodome. I was so impressed with the overall sound of the sonic boom. I had never heard that sound before. It was like when I heard them play, it was like I was watching TV or something like that. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. And then when I got to band camp and they started they played Stars and Stripes Forever. I'm like, man, this sounds just like it's on TV, man. That's all I could think. I'm like, man, this is the real deal. So it was the overall sound of the band, and I just felt like, man, I don't want to stay here in Houston and go to the same school that everybody from my high school is going to. I want to do something
different.
Yeah. So I was auditioned by Dr. Magruder, but he didn't stay for the fall of 2004. He left, but he auditioned me, and the recommendation he gave Dr. Liddell, he said, yeah, I think he needs to get out of the city and come to the country and learn some music. And Liddell, he gave me a scholarship based on those words. And if I ever get to speak to Dr. Magruder, I'm gonna see if he remembers. He probably doesn't, but you know, that recommendation from my audition is what got me down there. And without me going to Jackson State and not just being in the marching band, but what was really instrumental to me was the symphonic and wind ensemble. In particular, we were playing a piece, and you may be familiar with it, called Lincolnshire Posy.
Yep.
Okay. I never understood the placement of dissonance until we were playing that piece. And of course, in symphonic band, the percussion, we're not playing much at all. So that whole time I'm just listening and absorbing, you know, just listening. And that piece right there, the way it's 5 movements in it, and the way that the music flows, sometimes it's dark, then it goes bright, but the dissonance, I grew up believing everything has to be harmony or harmonized to sound good. But when you have dissonance, especially when you're going up a scale and down a scale, or you have the direction of the scale is coming together with 2 different instruments, and you end up like at a C and a D, you know, with maybe a French horn and a bassoon or something like that. All turns I can go on and on about it.
But what happens, Sid, is, and I think you said this earlier, music has to paint a picture. And the real talented arrangers and composers can make you hear what you feel and see. You know, and so, you know, if I'm at a wedding and I want something to sound jubilant, you got to have the skill to make the instrument sound like that. If something is sort of dark and, you know, I'm feeling dark now and my life is turbulent, you know, it's conflicting, you can write music that when you listen to it, those emotions will be touched. And so that's what is that? Is that Percy Granger? I think Lincolnshire Posy.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best that ever do it. But that's what that's about, man. And I think of that all the time. Like when we're putting shows together, what is it that we want the audience to feel when we're doing it? When we're done, what is their experience? Like when we went down to Queen City in 2017, that was my first show on a national level at Norfolk State. So before I even put that show together, I had to say to myself, Beathea, when you show up at Queen City and Talladega and Bethune and Jackson and Tennessee is there, what is it that you want them to say about your band? Because you're not big enough to out loud it. So what do you want to do there? How do you want people to perceive you? And I answered my own question. I want to be the cleanest marchers. I want to touch different styles of music. I want to be technically proficient. I want people to say, that band, if they ever get 270, 280, watch out. And that's what happened. So I designed the show and what we're going to play around that. And I made people feel that, you know. And that was one of our my best performances, like our greatest performances to me. That's going to go down top 2 or 3 because that band showed up. We're about 160, 170, you know, that day. But the sound and the marching, and we were playing Jupiter from Earth, Wind, and Fire with all those runs. All that stuff was in there. And that drum line was hitting. And we put that Take 5 in there, bro. It was all over the place. And we hit you with that Sweet Love, boy. That Anita Baker, that boy. We hit you with that too, man. It was just like, what a show. This band is amazing. That's what I wanted people to see, our versatility, our musicianship, you know what I mean? Our technically proficient approach towards music. And that's what they felt, man. You know, that's what they felt when we left there. And so mission accomplished, because I couldn't go in there and try to outblow, you know, Jackson, Miles, Tennessee, you know, those bands had all the power. So I wanted to do something different. And then we had to put the music together to back me up on that. That's how that worked.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I remember that show when you said Sweet Love.
Yeah.
Those trumpets on Sweet Love at the very beginning. Oh man. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. So it's been great, man. And like I keep saying, man, it all started in Jackson, boy, in 1993, man. I didn't come up here to 2000, so I had I think that's 93, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2000. Yeah, that's 8 years of great experience there, and everything keeps building on itself, you know. So, I can't thank my experience at Jackson enough. I can't thank, like Dr. Liddell, Dr. Magruder, Pop Duplessis, Paul Adams, O'Neill Sanford, Stephanie Sanders. These are all the people I'm working with, and they're phenomenal musicians, phenomenal talent. So, right. And here I am.
Here you are. And I just want to thank you for providing all of this information, and not just with your journey throughout music, but information that other musicians can listen to, especially students. They can log on and now listen to your take on music as someone who started off, in undergrad just like them, got your master's, you got your first job, and now you're the director of bands at a prestigious HBCU. I mean, that's huge. I mean, and this is, we recording this in Black History Month, so I mean, it's really making history.
And and I think the key thing is that I'm a percussionist, and that's what's hard for a lot of people to. Sometimes I blow my own students' mind in rehearsal or some of the things that I'm working on and hearing, because people think percussionists as just drums. And we touched on that earlier. You have got to know what's going on around you, man. I got a piano in my office. Sid, I play that sucker every day, even if it's just a scale, even if it's just a chromatic scale, or if it's just B flat. I play alma maters of my school, just different stuff so you can hear everything is right there on the keyboard. I think every musician should have a keyboard, I think it's the first thing you should buy, because everything is right there. Those minor seconds and dissonances that you were talking about, they right there. Those major seconds are right there. 1 3 5 1 is right there. The fifth of every chord is right there. And that's the best way, I think, by playing piano, that you can really get a grasp of all this stuff if you're serious about being, you know, performing or, you know, being involved with music on any kind of way. You need a piano.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have the students changed? Like, of course, you started in the early 90s, and now in 2022, we got so much technology. You know, back when you started at Jackson, those were grown men, you know, at such a young age. But now, do you find with the newer generation of students, maybe they're still kind of more dependent on their mom and dad, and you know, they're not as independent?
Yeah, Sid, you just said it. The generations have changed. And what happens with a generation is that the kids of that generation are affected by what's going on around them. And so the students that we're getting in college right now have changed tremendously. And you're right, they have been heavily dependent on parents taking care of their real business for them. And then they get to college and they got to be on their own and they struggle. The biggest thing of the new generation, and I can't remember the name of the new generation, Generation Y, maybe. It's a new generation right now. And I think those kids were born, 2002 or 3 or something. I don't know, I have to go back and study. But I do study generations because in order for you to be an effective teacher, you got to know the generation and the tendencies of who you're teaching. And what's happening now is the biggest problem we're having across the board, as I talk to other people too, is mental illness. Mental illness is the biggest issue among folks in school right now. We have a counseling agency on campus at Norfolk State that's probably 2 weeks booked out. Okay, and I can't tell you what's causing it, but it is a rapid and a sort of pervading through this entire generation. They're not handling death in the family real well. There's a serious amount of anxiety and depression. I guess expectations of what your parents or your mom or your dad or your grandmother expects of you, and you're not achieving those, they break down easily. And I don't know where that comes from, but that's a real thing now. And so what happened about 8 years ago, I was in a seminar that the gentleman talked about parents. He said, in order for you to teach the modern day kid, you got to understand their parents. And what he said was, in a nutshell, parents nowadays are more protective of students than we had back when we were all kids. And that they tend to take care of all their issues. They tend to protect the child of any issues or problems that may be coming their way. He gave us an example. He said, Johnny is going to college. Now, Johnny is a short young man. He's only 5'5" or something. And so when Johnny was a kid and he said, Mom, I want to go out for the basketball team, his mom said, no, Johnny, that's not for you. You need to do bowling instead, you know, to try to protect him from his height. You know, instead of letting Johnny go out there and prove his worth even at his height, right? And build his own confidence up by possibly making the team or making it tough for the coaches to cut him. He got protected from that from his mom, you know. So anything that had to do with his height, she always protected him from that. So when he gets to college and he moves in August to his dorm room, said his roommate was 6'6". So the mom said, Johnny, go ahead, pack your stuff. I need to go to the restroom. But instead said she went down to the front desk. And she said, my son needs another room. His roommate is too tall. And I don't want him to feel a little self-conscious about his height. And they switched Johnny's room, right? So what happens is he got protected from the reality that he's a short man from his mom, as if that's a bad thing. So what's going to happen the first time that reality hits Johnny?
Right.
And he's never had to deal with and understand what he can do and achieve as a short man. What's going to happen to him? He's going to become depressed. he's going to hear for the first time in his life, "Nah, you can't do this, bro. You're too short, bro. Come on." That's going to shock him because mom has protected him the whole time from having to deal with that. So those are the kind of things that are going on now. Like Sid, when I first started, you know who used to call me on the phone talking about, "I want to come to Jackson State," or when I got up here to Norfolk? Student. You know who calls me now? The mama, the band director. I have to beg mamas, "Can I please speak to you?" The mamas ask, "Well, what's going to be on the audition?" If I tell you, "Mom, you're not going to know what that is." You know? like you play tuba. "Can I speak to your son, please?" You know? But yeah, bro, it's 90% of the time, it's going to be a parent or grandparent or the band director who reaches out on behalf of the student. Whereas before, it was always the student calling for himself or herself. So in a nutshell, that is the difference. And there is a difference. Anybody that says there isn't is not telling the truth. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I applaud you for being able to adjust with the times and not changing with the times, because your core principles, whether it comes to how you grew up and then how you were reared in music, you still gonna have your core principles, but you do have to adjust with the generations. And you know, they going through things that I didn't have to go through. You didn't have to go through. Our parents didn't have. I mean, it's so out there now that they have to contend with. And you know, my heart goes out to all of the students that are really just trying to get their education and trying to get away from the distractions. I know it has to be tough. Has to be tough in 2022.
And you know, I think the technology, as much as we all love it, has hindered our youth a little bit because they got everything at their fingertips like this. You know, they can do anything like this, and they spend so much time on that device, you know, seeing how many followers they got, what their friends is doing, scrolling, that it has had a negative impact on reading, a negative impact on having the patience. I was at a high school function the other day that we went to for HBCU celebration. We took our pet band to a high school to play in the gym. Let me tell you something. When those folks was talking to those kids, if they talk longer than 30 seconds, they chattering. You know why I said? Because that's what those phones do, right? You ain't gonna watch no video on Instagram. You know, the average video on there is short. There's some that might give you a minute 10, right? But they in and out, in and out, in and out. Who gonna sit there and watch a 10, 12-minute video on Instagram?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So that's affected our children's attention span. So now you got to jump through hoops to keep them paying attention. You got to have music involved. You got to do some flips as a teacher. Look, my biggest respect right now is for the public school teacher, because they got some kids that cannot pay attention longer than 30 seconds of average Instagram video. Sid, you know I'm not lying, bro. I saw it. I was just at a high school gym. Boy, they started talking about recruiting and these admissions and all these, you know, things you got to do to get into Norfolk State. And the chatter just, right after about 30 seconds, they was talking.
Yeah.
Because they can't sit still and pay attention. It's the devices, man. So we got to figure out how to pull our youth back in, man, and make them or teach them what's going to take to be successful. And one of my keys to success is the way I talk to the students, you know, in terms of, you know, we may have iPads and Surface Pro and iPhones and all this stuff, but the characteristics and qualities that you have to be successful has not changed. And if you can't sit here and listen to me talk longer than 30 seconds, you get ready to start sweeping floors.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the truth. So don't get enamored with technology to the point where you can't sit down and listen to a professor's lecture for an hour.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I talk to my kids about this kind of stuff all the time. Because if they don't have this, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. And there's definitely a difference in student, man, without a doubt. You guys, and are you considered a millennial?
Yeah. I was born in 87.
Yeah. So the millennials are probably the last of the self-reliant. I'm going to do this thing myself. If I need my mom or dad, I'm going to go to them, but I'm going to call Jackson State. I'm going to figure out when auditions are. I'm going to figure out what it is I got to practice to get to the audition. And then I let my mom and dad know, to help me get there. You know what I mean? You probably were the last generation to do that. Now it's the parents making all the things so the kids don't have to worry about it. Then when they get to college, it's time for them to do all those things. They don't know how to do it.
Right. Yeah. I guess, I'm that last generation that was kind of, independent and knew how to take care of business, because for me, my mom passed away when I was 15. So I really had to be on my P's and Q's. There was nobody I could have looked to come up to the school and sort out anything. I had an older brother who kind of took care of me, up until, I was 18 and then throughout college. But he was back in Houston, man. I was in Mississippi, in a whole nother state, but I had the wherewithal to know, okay, I'm out here for a reason. Let me not lose sight of that. Let me finish the job here and, soak up what I can soak up. And then it's on to the next phase in my life. But that comes from good structure that I had, from my mom and my dad as well, so it all depends on kind of how you brought up. And another thing, we didn't say this off the top, but I watched another one of your interviews, and I learned that you got started in percussion from your mother.
Yeah, bro. My mom played in high school. She's always been an innovator as a Black woman. I mean, she played, that must have been what, the 50s or something, and it was not common back then for females to play drums. My mom was on the snare line in Michigan at some high school. Yeah. So what happened was, when I got, junior high school and stuff, she bought me a practice pad and stick just to see if I would be into it. And I was. Then she bought me a drum set, and then I started to get really good, and the rest is history. But my mom, man, she went on to get her master's degree and eventually her doctorate degree in philosophy. She was a business owner in Indiana when I was in high school. She was in the Rotary Club, which is exclusive. Yeah. My mom she was way ahead of her time, and she's still kicking. She's visiting with me now, matter of fact. But she has always been an innovator, but that's how I got started. And when I first got, the pad and the stick, she used to come over, but let me hear your paradiddle. And she had that old school technique. How you get on the pad, Mom, you're all right. She said, show off, you know what I mean? But she played in high school, man. And she's the one that put the sticks in my hand and really supported me doing that. Cause she was in she's a therapist. She's in the social work and, mental health, she's a counselor and a therapist, and I was into music, so she let me have that. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been, if I'd have followed in her footsteps and took her company over, all that kind of thing, But that wasn't in the cards for me, man. My thing was to do music and and it's funny you asked me about the generation, Sid, because I don't want to do this too many times. We complain about how the new kids are, the new students are, but we don't have that in place, which is going to help them be successful. I tell my staff all the time, I don't want to hear about when you was in the band, and what you did. The reality is these are our students, and it's our job to get them on track. So are we going to have to say things a million times? Yes. Are we going to have to yell at times? Yes. Are we going to have to pick them up and help and repeat ourselves a million times so that they get this? Yes. Are we going to have to go over things over and over again that they should already know? Yes. Are we going to have to spend some extra time with them, step-by-step process on what they should do on the simplest things? Yes, until they can start maintaining on their own. You know what I mean? That's our job to do that. So it's one thing to say that, man, this generation is crazy, but it's another thing not to even help them. So if this generation is crazy, all of us who are adults are crazy for not figuring out how to help them. You know, so I don't go for all that. Let's sit in a room and talk about how bad the kids are. I don't go for all of that. Now, my next question to you is going to be, well, what are you doing to get across to them that which you know they're going to need to be successful? And that's what I'm about every day. You know, there's been some strong speeches in that band room. It's been some laying kids out, embarrassing kids. You know, I've had to do a lot of things to allow these kids to wake up and sort of take charge of their lives. You know, and so it's one thing to acknowledge that we got a problem, but it's another level, you know, for you to put a plan together to be able to help, you know, help them get what they need to get out there and be on their own. And so.
Yeah, well, I think your understanding of the mental aspect, and I'm sure you didn't just get that understanding. I'm sure you had back then, you know, just starting out at Jackson State, but I think your understanding of the mental aspect of what adolescents go through, it helps you in education, because without that understanding, you'll just be doing stuff that's not even relevant to what they're going through, and it doesn't speak to them. So,
that's
you
correct.
know, I definitely understand that part of it as well. You know, being an educator. Well, I'm not an educator, but from the education standpoint, I understand how you have to understand the mind of a young person, or otherwise you won't know how to reach them, because like you say, don't nobody want to hear about what you did when you was in the band. That's over with. That's over with.
Yeah, and we got to do a habit a little bit of telling the kids, you know, how we used to do it, or why they're not performing well. It's because you're not doing this. Well, things have changed, okay? First of all, band practice when you was in the band went to 11 o'clock. These kids got to be out by 9. Yeah. Now, 2 hours is a lot of time, you know, to get stuff together. So we've had to structure our program and make it conducive for the modern day kids. It's got to move fast. They need material a lot earlier, right? I want them engaged. You know, I want an arranging team. Any kids that are interested in drilling and charting, you know, can be involved. You know, we have those kind of things going where it's all inclusive. I've got what most schools do, a student dance committee. They're in charge of the entire dance routine, writing the music, teaching the dances, all of that. All I want to do is get out there and co-produce. You know what I mean? So, or explain to them why this won't work, or explain to them why they should consider doing this instead. You know, but so, you know, they're involved, bro, and you do those kind of things, you'll be, let's take COVID, for example. When that hit, and I got word that Norfolk State University was going to be open, all right, but with limited available classes, mostly online and mostly hybrid classes. When I got wind of that, I said, well, I'm going to have band. And Stephanie Sanders and I, we went to the CBDNA Zoom meeting and tried to learn what, you know, the tendencies was and how can the virus be spread through the horn, you know, and all those kind of things. We put together a proposal, sent it to the school, and asked for permission that the school's opening. The kids I got chose Norfolk State because of the band. We need to have band. And so, well, we got all the PPE, performance masks. We only practiced outside. If we practiced inside, it was very small groups that could be spread out. We had masks coverings for the bell coverings. You know, we did everything that everybody in our field said to keep folks safe you should do. And we were able to have band during COVID. All right, we had 0 outbreaks.
Wow.
You know, 0 from the way we did that. Now, we didn't do any drills, any shows. We just basically were stationary. We were able to teach our marching styles. We put out some videos that year, basically just stationary playing, but we were able to survive and to be active and not go dormant. So why is that important? Because I said to myself, this is going to be tough for a couple of years, but eventually COVID we'll get past it and the world is going to resume as normal. Do I want to start this band program over, or do I want to continue where I am now? The answer was, I don't want to start over. So that's called leadership, right? So we had a band and it showed up at the at this Houston gig we just did, the National Battle of the Bands, because I felt like we were the most prepared band. You know why? Because we had been practicing safely.
Right.
You know what I mean? That
Right.
spring before this National Battle of the Bands, we were out there spring semester in a covert formation, 6 feet apart side to side, 10 feet front and back, and playing in windows, coverings on the horn. And we were going through some of the ideas for the show music. We stayed active so that when we got to band camp this year, we got to band camp and preparing for Houston, we never had stopped.
Yeah, that's leadership.
That taught the kids something, Sid, right? That taught the kids not to just sit on this COVID thing and do nothing, use COVID as an excuse to be lazy. We figured out how to survive it. And that taught our kids a big thing. And we got down to Houston this year, boy, we were prepared. We were playing literature that nobody would dream of trying coming off of a COVID year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you see what I'm getting at? So that's kind of stuff I'm on now, man, because like I said, I'm in my early 50s now. I got to figure out, while I'm still doing this, I need to have a heavy impact on people, before it's time for me to move on and do something else, because it's definitely a young man's game,
you looking good though. You looking good, Mr. Beathea.
I'm trying to keep it going, man, but it's a young man's game. As long as the Lord wants me here doing what I'm doing, I'm going to do it. But when it's time to step away, I want to know that, I've made some mistakes along the way, and there's times I try to do too much and all of that. That comes with the territory. I certainly haven't been perfect all these years, but my overall effectiveness has been really good. And, it started right with that fiber skin head and them blue letters on the back. Man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, what kind of fun is that y'all use the Jackson on them letters, man? What kind of funk is that?
Oh yeah, man. This is my homie Mike, man. He bust through this head and see it right here. What? Somebody told me that they're discontinuing these heads.
I don't know, bro, because we don't play with fiber skins. I hope that's not the case, because what in the world are y'all gonna use?
I don't know, man. I got word of that a few days ago that these drum companies are discontinuing a lot of stuff because of the decrease in sales. So, I hope that's not the case, but I don't know what we're gonna do if we lose these fiber skins, man. But
that attack on them things is so good, and it's like pow, like,
oh man, it give you that warm, fuzzy feeling on the inside, when you need it. It also can sound like an earthquake as well when you need it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Man.
Thank you, Mr. Beathea. This has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to speak with you. I mean, it was a long time coming, but it was worth the wait, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I just want to congratulate you on your journey throughout music and throughout life, because you have had a remarkable journey that I think someone will be able to log on and listen to you speak and be inspired to keep on their journey, whether it be in music or whether it be in another field. Just the information that you shared and how you were able to soak up the game every step of the way, being humble, listening before you start implementing. I think those are valuable things that somebody can pick up when they hear and they watch this conversation. So if there was anything that you would like to leave with our audience, one last thing, whether it be students or educators like yourself or parents, or anybody that will watch this, what would that one thing be?
That's a great question there. I don't know if I have one thing. I will tell everybody out there, I think I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the people at Jackson and tell Warren Thunder, man, I'm going to be checking them out here. I saw him at the National Battle, man. I got to check them out a little bit more. I watch Jackson all the time in terms of the band, but I just think that if I had to tell people one thing, it's going to be this, Sid. The greatest gift on earth that you have to give is yourself. What I love about the way God got this set up is each one of us are different. I have taught thousands of kids throughout my career of doing this, like 30 years now, and not two of them are the same. So where we get off at times is admiring other folk and trying to be too much like them. And you're really killing the gift that God gave you to share with the world, which is yourself. What kills me is that each one of us have a fingerprint, man, and there's nobody in the rest of the world that has the same fingerprint as you. Now, I don't know God like that. I know him, but not like that. But what I'm thinking is that your fingerprint is a blueprint of all the qualities he put in you. And that's how he remembers all the things he put in you. It's on your blueprint. Can't nobody else read it but God.
That's right.
And so what happens is you kill your own blessings when you don't be you, when you don't share your talents with the world, wherever they may be. Be yourself. What would happen if Michael Jackson was trying to be like Prince and we never got to see Michael? What would happen if Prince was trying to be like the lead singer from the Rolling Stones and we never got to see Prince? You got to be yourself, man. It's the greatest gift you got. You know, when I meet people, I want to hear about you. I want to know about you because you are the best gift to the world that you got. And that's what I tell people all the time, man. It's okay to admire somebody from the far by how they're handling things and, you know, how talented they are. But you are God's gift to the world, and you got to have confidence in that. And don't let nobody talk you out of being you or what you think you should do to represent yourself. That's probably the thing I would like to leave everybody with, Sid, along with thank you to all the Jackson folks out there, man. I love y'all. Every time I see the sonic boom, man, it's like those feelings inside. You know, I got my start there, bro. And that's nothing but respect. It's always going to be like that till the day I die. And so I'm very appreciative to all my students who may hear this, the experience that we share with each other, man. Y'all taught me just as much as y'all might have learned from me. So it was a mutual thing. And for that, I got nothing but love and respect, you know, for the Sonic Boom, Warren Thunder, and Jackson State University. And I thank you, Sid, for doing this. And I'm proud of you, bro. And you keep on doing your thing. All right. When I asked about you, man, I told my boys, I said, somebody named Sid want to interview me. They know who you was.
Yeah.
They knew who and all this, who you was.
Yeah. I try to keep a good name out here, man. But you know,
right.
On behalf of Warren Thunder, just thank you for your contributions, because the things that you did even back then, I mean, people still talk about you. I'm not sure how often you visit Jackson, but if you ever go in that drum room and you just say, hey, y'all, I'm just peeping my head in the door, I'm Mr. Beathea. Oh, man, they already know who you are. I mean, your name has lived on, and you are always welcome. You are always welcome. You are always family. And even though we've not personally met, just from hearing the stories about you and then now getting a chance to speak with you, I mean, I'm just honored. I'm honored for real. And shout out to the Norfolk State Spartan Legion and the $1 Million man. Much love,
sir.
Yes, sir.
Like you say, bro, we cousins up in here.
Yeah, straight up.
Hey, man. It's my pleasure, bro, talking to you, man. Maybe we can do this again, man. Maybe we can bring some other people in on a conversation. That would be great, too.
Yeah, I would enjoy that. So I'm going to put this up for the whole world to see. I think it's a very important conversation that we had. And much love to you and your family. So, ladies and gentlemen, Professor William Beathea. This was a classic interview, y'all. Professor William Beathea.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking soon.
Okay, take care, bro.
All right, my brother. Peace.
Yep.